Yo, we here. Thanks everybody for coming back. So the last time that I did this, it was just super fun to run this kind of analysis and do it as like a stream that I want to try to do this more often. I felt like my last stream helped me enhance like my own fighter practice. Like there was a couple of like actual techniques that I saw in film, and I got to thinking, like when I was uh, on my run up through Warlord, and while I think I was one of the top fighters. I mean, that could be in some contention. I realized that um, I didn't really have much of a video habit back then, and I kind of regret it now because it feels like it's just a good way of getting like different ideas and new practice in that's not going to like wreck my joints and stuff. So I haven't reviewed any of this yet because I don't want to just like kind of preach down from the sermon of like my apartment when I haven't really traveled to fight very much in a couple of years. So my goals are to kind of model like how do you look at combat tape. So I like to look at this stuff fresh. I haven't seen it before. I don't know who the winners are. We are going to look at single sword, sword board, and Florentine. I'm hoping to stream till about 10 o'clock. So I give the people in the chat the choice, which one do you want to do? Give me number 1 for single sword, number 2 for sword and board, and number 3 for Florentine. And whoever just picks the most, that's the one we're going to do. So, all right, we're going to go with single sword, then we'll do sword and board, then we'll do Florentine after that. I think that's pretty fitting because I did a ton of Florentine analysis on my last stream, so we're going to start with single sword. So I have not seen this. I don't know anything about how this works or who wins, anything like that. I don't really know most people's names. So if you were at these tournaments and you want to call out the name of the fighter, it helps me learn new people's name and remember. And the second thing is if you want to drop your Ant Guard name or fighting name in the chat so that people kind of know who you are when you're talking, I think it just makes it a more fun, personalized experience. So anyway, let's get this started. If you guys need audio adjustments, let me know. Okay, Nolan on the left, Fib on the right. Thank you. Oh, Nolan, Fib. All right, let's get this going. Good patience. Good range control by Nolan. Okay. Good long range snipe. So the first thing I noticed. Perfect. All right, so step 1. So this is a common like thing that I think people do when they start to become like when they hit that mid level. They don't really kind of mind this particular item of footwork. And this can vary for people depending on like their foot position. But one thing I see that's important to manage as early as you can in your fighting career is foot placement. So you can see that this foot here, let's see if I go, is pointed in this direction, right? So the toe here is pointed in this direction, and that means that his knee is also pointed in that direction. So what that essentially enables would be for Fib to move offline in this direction really quickly, since you're going to kind of like you're going to kind of ambulate in the direction that your knees and your toes are pointing. So the difficulty with this is that this doesn't let us move very well in this direction. So because our knee isn't pointed in this direction and our toe isn't pointed in this direction. So one adjustment that I might make to this stance here is make sure that this knee and this toe is pointed forward. There are situations where you kind of can't. So some of those situations could be like if you have a lack of groin flexibility, that could make it so that it's hard to spread your knees out far enough to be able to point that toe. Sometimes people are like pigeon-toed and their foot is actually like sitting on the end of the bone in the wrong position. And at that point, like it doesn't matter, right? You wouldn't want to like point your toe in a way that your body like isn't designed to point. But I think that that's something that everybody should spend time on, is making sure that that toe points, because a good counter strategy that Nolan can use is a main challenge with this kind of stance is it's very hard to turn this way. So if Nolan wanted to, he can just move offline in this direction and kind of circle out and around. And it makes it really difficult to lift this foot up and turn. So it can kind of give you a good opportunity to approach if you like to use that angle, right? So that's one of the reasons that I feel like I was taught fairly early to point the knee and point the toe to make sure that your force is like transferring correctly and then back correctly. Because if my knee is pointed to the inside and I'm fighting in this direction, when I bend, I'm going to kind of sink off in that way. So that's definitely an item that I might, an optimization that I might try to make if I was fib. So it looked like Nolan is fighting left-handed. So that could be difficult for some people. I'm not sure if he's a natural lefty or just hand matching, but you know, it kind of doesn't really matter. But one thing I noticed through this set is I think that this proximity is just a tiny bit close. I think what I would want to do is move a little bit further, is I feel like when you have a hand matched scenario, the distance is much shorter. So natural lefty. Oh, envious. The distance to hit these forearms are much shorter. So you tend to want to be like another half step back away from a person when you're hand matched. This feels a little close. And it makes sense because I think the plan here was for Fib to kind of try to counter time as Nolan is swinging. And I think Fib kind of uses Nolan kind of uses the close proximity to drive in a little bit further. But that's something I'd watch, is like take another half step back. I feel like there's a lot of really good micro lateral adjustments on Nolan's part here too. It's kind of moving back and forth. I think with the foot position, I might optimize by circling in the direction of the pointed foot. 7-foot wingspan is nuts, man. I'm envious of that. I might try to circle instead of just do like side-to-side micro adjustments. There's definitely a place for that, and I think you should always be executing some kind of lateral movement to just like confuse the system so it's not very easy to deal with. But I think I would want to drive out and around that foot a little bit. Okay. This looked like just I have a double, which is like Nolan chopped in to establish where the guard was and then threw lower. I like the offhand position. That was one thing I was going to look at immediately. Is just this offhand floating to create coverage for the attacking arm, and he nailed it. And I don't know if you saw it on the frame, but he not only came up with it correctly here, but it looks like he drove it over top like that too when he threw low. So that's good stuff. Bonk right there. You can see how it kind of like moved across that way. So that looked good. this one. Interestingly, it looks like Fib's foot positioning here is actually a little bit closer to what I want, where this is pointing not quite straight, but pretty close. It's funny when we get like portions of our offhanded game correct that aren't quite in our like natural game. I think because you have to like think about it a little bit more intuitively, it can make that stancing line up a little bit better. All right, speaking of which, this is Telfair, and if someone can let me know who this person is, that would be great. Telfair. Okay, this was... Back. Canal. Is that pronounced right? Canal. All right. So I feel like leading off with a stab when you're hand matched is kind of not is not something that I would start with. The way that they're lined up, Telfair's like a little bit flat to him, but not like overly so, right? Like he's got a pretty neutral turn, and then Keno is kind of like also lined up in that way. So we talked about this a little bit on my last stream, where a Florentine fighter was using kind of like a pointed stance to threaten stabs to keep the other fighter from approaching him. And what we talked about is that if you have your torso turned in such a way, if you have it turned in this situation and you're not fighting kind of flat, basically it makes the stab has there's something called, like, it's a lifting concept, right? And it's called a carry angle. So a carry angle is like when you're lifting and you do like a bicep curl like this. It's not straight up and down. There's kind of like a natural internal rotation. So when you do the more natural way of like curling a dumbbell, it's kind of like turned in this way, right? So your arms don't just kind of go straight. When they travel out, you can see if you like throw a punch, when you hit the end range of motion, the natural thing to do is to kind of cross over there. So like a stab will do the same thing, where like if you start to stab someone, it'll start to, when you hit your end range of motion, it'll kind of start to naturally drift off to the side. So when you're hand matched, your torso is turned in such a way that that carry angle makes you kind of angle inside. So it doesn't make you like immune to stabs or anything, but it definitely like turns a stab from being at 100% stoppage to something that's more like 50 or 60. And I think that was enough here, especially because if you see, Telfair kind of backed up a little bit and popped him. So he kind of used that terminal part of the range of motion and the carry angle to make that stab kind of drift past him. Or at least that's my theory on how that happened. So he kind of just drifted back, and that carry angle could protect you, because when they hit that terminal range of motion, the next thing that people start doing is kind of turning inward like that a lot of the time. Let's go back. I think this looked like just a bit of a over-ambitious approach here, where he kind of stepped in and then turned this way. When he missed, it kind of rotated his torso. So the problem is, if you're hand matched, that's taking your hand out of play. So you don't want to drive forward and commit so hard that you end up turning. So it might be a good idea to try to optimize that lunge and making sure that you're landing in a way that is organized and basically stops you instead of like lunging and then accidentally getting carried far forward a little bit and then turning to a bad angle. Or like the other thing that you can do, if you find yourself where you lunge forward and then feel yourself drifting this way, you could just go that way, right? Like you can use that little bit of a mistake and try to turn it into a happy accident where you kind of got like out of their range or off to the side or change the coordinate system in some way. So that might be, I think the first optimization I would make is try to make sure that when you land, that it's a terminal position that you can recover and react from, and they're not trying to lunge too far. And the second thing that I would do is try to take that long extension and then turn it into some offline movement afterwards. That's it looks like, just to start back over, it looks like basically Telfair won these by backing up and reaching him out. And it looked like on this last fight, I think it's Keno. Is that right? Yeah, Keno started using some lateral movement to try to at least get himself some kind of safety. So that was good. I think that was the right adjustment to make. I think it was just a little bit like you can't make that kind of adjustment when you're down one in a tournament. You have to kind of start with that lateral movement on round one, because as those rounds progress, you're going to lose access to, you're going to lose stamina and you're going to lose access to that lateral movement. So, and there's something to be said for playing real patient and then finishing off strong, but that's more like something when you would do when you're really sure that you have an experience advantage on them, or you're really committed to backing up and patiently like counter-striking them. But when you know that you're going to have to close in, I think it's best to kind of start with that lateral movement while you still have access to it, because unless your endurance is really, really peak, you may end up losing access to that later or having that lateral movement not quite be as crisp. But it was good. It was good to see that was there. Lots of lefties for Telfair. Lots of great. I think Telfair just did 5 stutters in this set already. He's definitely using the fact that he has longer reach to sensitize his opponent without committing to anything, right? So he's stuttering. Let's see what he does. Backing up, resetting a little bit. Safe shot. Okay, good lateral movement. Let's see. You know, it seems like lefties kind of congregate. Louisville, Kentucky was like that too, where there were like 5 really good left-handed fighters in one city. It's very, very interesting. All right, so I want to see if we can figure out where was Telfair stuttering and what did he end up throwing to. So, inside. I think that's outside. Inside. Outside. I think that's outside. Then he backs up and lets him think about it for a little bit. There's another outside. And he came in for the kill inside, right? So it looked like he had 2 or 3 outside stutters. He had a couple of safe shots on the outside. I don't know if he felt like consciously like it was safe to approach on that, but he had some outside shots. And he eventually came in for that kill on the inside. So that was like a really cool setup there, right? Like you can see how it wasn't just like one stutter that killed Nolan. It was that he set up like a whole context. It's like inside fake, outside. Safe outside shot. And he had an outside and then 2 inside shots. So that was great. That was great, like establishing of context. I think that can be more difficult to do, I think, when you're the shorter fighter, because that throwing outside is it's very committal if you can't stay far away from the opponent. I think what you would have to do, it looks like Telfair has the leeway to hit him like in the hand with those safe shots. I think a shorter fighter could stutter like that and achieve like a very similar effect. I think what I would try to do for myself if I was trying to replicate that is I think that I would try to do those outside shots as like a blade maybe in the middle to the higher part of the sword as I'm coming around to the outside. So that's definitely something I'm going to try to steal and play with, because I'm probably stuck in a hand-matched situation for a couple more weeks at the very least. I'm close to healing, but I think that that looks like a great starting place for me to just like take that. So thanks, Telfair. That was great. All right, let's see the next one. So time, stutter, outside. You can see Nolan's responding to the outside a little bit. See if Telfair goes inside again. Now it looked like he jumped him. So that was really smart by Nolan. I'm not sure what the outcome there was, but that was really good strategizing on Nolan's part, where Telfair kind of started doing the same approach again, where he's like outside stutter, and Nolan kind of recognized that the pattern was happening and was like, I know that I can't just sit here and get picked apart again, so I'm going to try to close in and make sure that I take some control of the fight. So that looked real solid, like, as strategy-wise. I'm not sure what the outcome was. See, there's no caption, so let's see if we can outside. I think this is where he's like, I'm done with this. See again. Okay, so that looked like he kind of, I just some straight shots where he kind of called the position that Telfair would be in and kind of like jumped forward and got him. So a lot of the time when someone is using stutters and feints and stuff, the best way to put a stop to it is to just say, Nil, if you come over here, I'm going to bonk you. Stop doing that. And you just jump them and try to hit them. And basically, like on the beat where they're stuttering, if you just hit them on that beat, I can get them to stop doing that. It can also get them to stop stuttering and feinting in the next fight if you land that counter strike quickly. So I think that if there was a strategy that I would use from Nolan's position, that's probably what I would have done in terms of strategy. I think the shot selection makes sense. I think maybe that's not quite what I would have done, but I think it looks good. All right. That's a good blade beat to the top. That's great. So I think that this was a really cool example of how it's not just about winning one fight in a round, it's about winning the series, right? So in this fight, it looked like Telfair started with a lot of stutters and then switched to retreating backwards when he started getting the reaction that he wanted. So I think that that's perfect. So like fight one, Telfair did all that stuttering from the outside and some safe shots to the hand to sensitize the outside of his hand position. On fight two, Nolan called that gambit and closed on him really quickly in order to counter strike. And then what I think happened here, I'm not sure if it was like a conscious decision, I think it looked like Telfair started stuttering and faking from the outside with safe shots. And then when he was sure that Nolan was going to commit forward, he backed up and counter-striked him using his range. So, oh, did Nolan take that one? Okay, Nolan won the match. All right. So the theme of what Telfair is doing, I think, is really good. It seems like, okay, so I think I probably still would have used the strategic approach that Telfair used. It looked like he was just kind of incorrect about where that shot kind of came in. I see it now, where it looked like Nolan got this arm first. I think I probably still would have done what Telfair did. He may have just misjudged the range a little bit. Like, them's the breaks. From Nolan, he was correct too, where he is like, he's dealing with like stutters and pressure from the outside. It's like, I'm gonna rush through and hit you for wasting your time with like a stutter and kind of call that gambit. It looked like Telfer maybe just misjudged the range a little bit and got hit for it. All right. And this is still single sword, so it's Patches versus Braun at about 3 minutes. All right, let's check it out. Wide. I think Patches is calling that bronze win. We got some lateral movement from Braun here. Got a wide outside. I think usually you don't want to. Actually, no, this isn't hand match, so it doesn't matter. I think that was a really good snipe and a good choice because that was from like absolute max distance, so that was a safe thing to do. And it looked like what happened here. So it looked like Braun did like a safe shot here, where he's like, I'm just gonna hit him in the hand to make him think that he's got a guard here, and it looks like he blade beats and then advances and hits him from this same angle. So I think, if I'm correct, the swing is coming from this direction. So let's see if that works. So I think this is going to be a blade beat to the top of the sword, and then he comes in at that same angle. No. Let's see. So safe shot. I think he does a blade beat downward. Yeah. And then, that's interesting. So, he hits a safe shot on the inside, then a blade beat downward, I think, to get his opponent to like try to lift his guard up. Because that's like the natural reaction is to pull your sword back against the direction that it was beaten. So then he goes to the inside there. So I think I like that setup. And I think I'm wondering, because when I blade beat, I think the one blade beat that I do in single sword is I'll hit across like this, and I step in and throw in the same direction. But his blade beat was like down to get him to lift his hand up and then inside. So I'm going to probably take that and play with that too. That's just, I think that is probably, the way that Braun is using a blade beat here is probably better than the way that I've been using it. But that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to make a note for myself to start using that a little bit. I think the main thing for Patches here is he was very passive in this fight. Dying to blade beat next week, maybe. I think the main thing for Patches here is Patches let Braun move wherever he wanted. He's very still in his footwork. He's keeping like a good measure away from Braun, but he's not like counter circling. He's not threatening to come in. He's not threatening to retreat a lot. He's kind of just hanging out and trying to like outread him. I think the temptation is like, I'm going to wait for you to throw. I'm going to react with the correct decision. And that's just, you have to kind of envision fighting as something that you do in essentially like a double blind scenario, because I feel like you're very rarely reacting to stuff in the way that you think that you are. You're not usually reacting to like the sword coming at you. You're reacting to their body communicating to you that the sword is going to come in this direction, which is just not fast enough to sit there and wait and react. So I think if Patches did like more footwork of any kind here, that wouldn't have felt that he wouldn't have let Braun establish so much context against him first. So you got to kind of your own movement on the outside of the start of the fight and your own stuttering. It doesn't just communicate to the opponent things that you might take advantage of. It also kind of muddles your opponent's ability to communicate things too. So I think that that's something that I probably would work on for patches. So I think this is kind of the same thing. So I think that was like a simultaneous stab. Let me see this again. I think it's a simultaneous stab, or close to it. Which is, I think that was a good call, because this, if you look at their torso rotation, when you're in a non-hand masked situation or crossways or whatever you want to call it, the direction Braun's torso is facing is kind of in an angle that's like this, and the direction that Patch's torso is facing is kind of in an angle like this, right? So they're kind of parallel instead of cross. And when we talked about that carry angle with the stab, when you stab forward, it's going to kind of track this way, right? So if we move this a little closer, it kind of curves in a little bit, and then it lands perpendicular at a right angle to the orientation of his body, right? So this is one reason why you have to kind of keep moving your feet. This is the symbol for a right angle here. It looks awful. That's right angle. All right. I'm not sure if that was the call, but I think it was. Yeah. I didn't see the stand lab on Patches, but I can see patting himself to take the hit, so that's fine. This kind of looked like Braun kind of felt that high cross against his guard and then jumped to the inside to kind of tag him for a reset, and then got hit for doing that, which is like a normal part of single sword and kind of the meta. Okay, I think also he was calling his body, I think, with the gesture. But I think that Braun's shot was in time too. So that's like a very single sword meta thing to do, is if you feel like you're going to get hit, like you can just throw for the reset. And sometimes you just win for doing that. That's why I don't like single sword very much. It's not my favorite. Like, yes, it's foundational, but a lot of the meta is making sure that, like, you don't have to make sure that you're not dead, but you have to make sure that the other guy is dead. Florentine is very much like that too a lot of the time. But that's good strategy. That's the meta. I think, let's see here. She said that. All right. Let me see this one more time. Okay. So I think the main thing that I'm seeing, it looks like at the start of the fight, we've got Patches has got some circling going on. Okay, yeah, see that was this switch that I saw. I don't know if you're joking that he positioned for the Reeds to watch that angle. I don't see anything too questionable. I think I just don't have, I don't really have any clue into who won here or what the call is. But I think when you circle like that, we're still like kind of planted down. We can see that this when we talked about this footwork position, his foot position here kind of being offline a little bit. I didn't take note of this before, but we really want to get that foot and knee pointed this way at the opponent so that it enhances our reach a little bit. I think that doing just that much would really help Patches out, because it does seem like he wants to use all of his reach and all of his range and fight from as far away as he can. He seems like he's a light person and pretty quick, so it's just I think that this change right here would enhance that range a little bit and maybe make it a little bit more comfortable to move mid-fight. Okay, yeah. I don't have enough details to make any kind of call. Brand said he was late. Patches took that one. Okay. I thought that was what Braun said. I think you can really see that meta in there too, where Braun loses a hand, has like a bit of an oh shit moment. And he's like, shit, I got to throw to reset. I think the only issue that I'm seeing that I would optimize for Braun here is Braun has attacked pretty much this half. Whoops. He's kind of attacked this same side on Patches pretty consistently. So I'm wondering if that's kind of how Patches was able to get a snipe in there. I think that it might be, since Braun has gotten a win attacking this angle, and he got a simul and a reset attacking this angle, it's probably time to start hitting this other side on Patches just to get that kind of mix up. It's harder to do because I think interfacing with the high cross at max range can be tricky. Like, you have to figure out like where their arm is going to be in a terminal position and kind of hit it out here at max range. And it seems like Braun really wants to kind of drive in and scrap, which I deeply respect. That's definitely how I like to do my fighting. But I think like you get one side on a hit, you're probably going to go to the other side. If you hit the same side twice, that's the mix-up, right? Like, that's that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But if you on shot 3, I think that's when you're starting to show your opponent like there is a pattern here and you need to change it. So I don't know if that's just like his kind of favorite angle to attack from. I think we've all got sides like that we favor, but I would probably switch which side at that point. I want to see if he does, because I know Braun is very good. So I want to see if he makes that switch or if he just kind of continues to dominate that one side. That was like more, I think that was intended to be a blade beat, and that's like closer to the one that I like to use. Let's go for another blade beat. There's another one. It kind of stays on that side. I think that was a simul again. Let's see if he goes to the other side. Same side. Okay. So I think Braun's footwork is great here. His lateral movement and range control is great here. He's using a lot of stutters and blade beats, which are really good just methods of control. But I think if I was to offer an optimization there, it would definitely be high crossing's like not one. It's not my favorite, but it is kind of the best shot in the game. And there are ways that you can get around those kinds of crosses. And there's like lots of different ways, right? Like you can go high over. You can do like a reverse wrap and put like a hand block here to the outside of their sword. There's lots of different things that you can do. I think that starting with that crossbody shot to the chest is like a great idea because it's very powerful for him. But I would think on like fight 2, fight 3, it's going to be time to start. Maybe I was really hoping that he would use like a blade beat to that inside and then go across that way. Braun's a brute of a fighter. He will just keep doing the move he likes until it hits. I'm the same way. Like, I try to not do that in tournaments, but when I'm sparring, I see one fucking shot, and I can't, especially if I can't land it, I'm very much like, fuck this. Like, this is definitely gonna hit you. I have all fucking day. Like, I'm gonna shoulder wrap you or whatever it happens to be. I think that that's a great way to practice. That's the way that I would optimize this approach if I was Ron. He's very good and wins tournaments. You can take it or leave it. But that's just what I would do, I think. Kind of same side. I mean, he made it work. He made it work. I think that's what you call in fighting games the no mix-up. And it can be really effective because it can leave the other fighter being like, okay, dude, like, when are you going to mix it up? And you just look at them and you're like, I'm not going to mix it up. I will hit you with this all day. And there's like a lot of strategic power in that too. There's a lot of times when, like, especially if someone expects you to mix it up and then you don't, like, that will get you wins for sure. So, and that may be what was going on there. Like, I don't know if he fights Patches frequently. Maybe he just tried to do that. Maybe he was trying to hit that side on Patches and it just like wasn't working for him. Those are all plausible things that could happen. So the 8th high cross just has to land. And if it's not the 8th, it's the 9th. It's the 10th. I think you could make an argument for repeating the high cross, but changing the horizontal position of it. I think you can make an argument to do that because the high cross is so safe to throw. But I think crossbody shots, since most of your defense is from your offhand, I think that's probably not the safest bet to make. So that's just fake high cross into the 9th high cross. Absolutely. All right, let's get back to work. So we got Telfair versus Patches. Let's see where this goes. So I can kind of imagine here, since Patches isn't moving his feet too terribly much, I can picture Telfair's stuttering on the outside being extremely effective here. So I'm wondering how this is going to go. I think Patches took that. Because it looked like he got that cross in and then hammered it. I saw Telfair switch hands there, which means he probably dropped that one. I think. Yeah, play beats. Okay. Reeve in the back is gesturing it. I appreciate it when Reeves point to the person that won. That also helps. So, what we got here? So I think what happened here, the narrative that I can kind of see here is that it looked like Telfair kind of tried to pin his sword with blade beats down one too many times. Patches said, fuck this, high crossed at him, and then mashed on that high cross. I want to see if there's maybe some lateral foot movement to get that high cross down. That is one of the hardest parts of single sword, in my opinion, is like, you can just get pinned down by repeated high crosses and not be able to do anything. And your only choice is to, like, you can back up. If you're really sharp, you can transfer a hand block or hit them in the body, but, like, they've got a hand block too, so that's kind of a mixed situation. Or you can kind of back off and try to do it again. 3rd and 4th place. I'm not too concerned about the placements, but it is really helpful for you to call that out, so thank you. I think that's pretty much what happened. I think maybe Telfair came in just a tiny bit straight too, which kind of got him stuck in that cross trap. I'm wondering if Patches... It also looked like Patches had some good lateral movement here, where he kind of swept off this way a little bit. So I think that the one thing that really enhances those cross traps is lateral movement, kind of in any direction, right? Like you don't, if they don't have like a second way of guarding, you just need that sword offline. It doesn't really matter what direction it's offline in. So that was really good. It was a good use of that trapping with that cross and then moving laterally. I think Telfair's lateral worked against himself because of how Patch's feet were positioned. Okay, let me see if I can see what you're seeing here. Lateral left. Oh, you know, that's a really good point, right? So we were talking earlier about having this foot rotated inwards, but I think the thing that it allowed him to do here that Kai called out was it allowed him to, whoops, not correct, back up this way instead. So I think that that gave him kind of a sharp side-to-side movement there that I think may not have been what Telfair expected. What direction did Telfair move in here? Yeah, he kind of moved. Telfair kind of moved out this way. And then Patches moved back this way. So I think that since he was pinning him down with the cross, with a cross trap, that I think ended up being what kind of knocked Telfair out here. That was a great call. It was a great call. I didn't think about that foot position working that way. This is 523. Okay, yeah, it just looked like Telfair kind of just missed there. And Patches was on the inside. I think that's what I'm seeing. I think let's see, did Telfair go for like a blade beat up top? Yeah, it looked like he may have gone for like a blade beat since the shot kind of went short a little bit. And then he tried to get it back over top again. I think the optimization that I might make there to try to get through that is if you kind of feel yourself miss, I wouldn't try to go up top and over, especially because like Telfair is a super tall dude, right? So he's got this much body to hit. So if you're trying to go over top in single sword, all they kind of got to do is drop down. And there's like, unfortunately, so much of him that this is trouble for. It's like a situation that you would get in trouble in. I think what I would try to do if I missed this blade beat was, first of all, I think it would probably be best to try to retreat if the initial part of your plan didn't execute. Like, you're the taller guy, you get the first move, you don't have to commit to that. You can miss that blade beat and go, oh shit, and then back off and step back. I think the other thing is it seems like Patches is pretty committed to crossing in this fight, which I think makes a lot of sense. Like, again, it's the best shot in the game. It's extremely powerful in single sword especially. But the other thing that you can do if you miss that blade beat is if you go over top here, it can be really effective to chop up like this with like a scoop shot. I think Morph calls it the Skywalker or something like that, but it's just you go down like that and then up like this, and you can snap them and you still kind of come to a guard that can help stop some of that, right? Or if you go down, just flip up with like a rising chop. So if I miss down, I can sweep back up. And this gets my hand high in the position where it would still stop a high cross, gets the hand back in play, and it also hits like a lower quadrant shot. And I can put this arm up here, and now I've got both quadrants cut off at the top. So that might be something I would try to do instead of trying to go over high herd on retreat or not go high again. Okay, those are just, I think, and it's easy to say like, I'm the fucking Tato. Like if I did this thing, it would work. I think that this is just kind of like the thing that I would try to optimize after the fact, right? So I think any of those things would work. But if you miss that top shot, the other thing that I was thinking about, as I felt like Braun was using blade beats probably more in the way that they are intended to be used than I would use them. I'm actually pretty impressed with that. Where like what Braun did was he snapped with that blade beat to get the head, push their hand down and then lift it back up. Like the impulse is to lift the hand back up to protect yourself. Whereas like if you blade beat down and then wrap over the top, like that's kind of where they want to go anyway. So that gave me a lot to think about. So those are some of the changes that I might make. Also not sure it was a blade beat. It might have just been a miss. So that's possible. Like this is Braun versus Nolan. Okay, so this is just kind of getting out lefty a little bit. Where like the basic premise of left-handed single sword is you want to be the first guy to throw the low shot at the right time. I think this looks really good on Braun's part and is a great pattern, but I think that he's trying to make it work from too far away. I don't think that we have a great sense of when this particular clip starts, because it seems like I get this sense that maybe they were already going for a minute before this started, but like you can see, we got Nolan's here, Braun's here. This is like quite some distance to try to travel, right? And the other part of this is you have to assume that if you're coming after someone, especially with like a shot that's like a classic Peter the Quick setup style shot where you're like, I'm going to establish a high guard, I'm going to drive in, I'm going to hit you low. You also have to make the assumption that this guy is going to move back this way too. So that kind of adds on to the lunge distance. So what this looks like to me is just Braun kind of just tried to jump in from too far. It's too long of a lunge and kind of ended up out of position. And that's kind of the classic like lefty scenario, is you're just trying to be in the right spot and get that hip, you know, for hand matching type stuff. So I think you just need a little bit more patience there. It would be fun to see what the next one is, because I'm wondering if it's going to be the same shot again, because I think we talked about in chat how Braun likes to try to make the same shot work. So I'm excited to see that. I think it'll be different. Yeah, it's still outside. It was like arm. Let's see what we got. Did he kind of drag that across him? I'm surprised Braun is calling Tat here. He might have got him lower. Maybe. I think that was, see if anybody points to the background. That's a simul. Okay. Yeah, he got him. I think Nolan got him across the belly when he switched. I think is what happened there. Okay, you can see Braun doing some stuttering here on the outside. Not like very serious stutters, but he's kind of at least threatening it by moving his sword to the outside. I'm wondering, he threw those other two to the outside in the last fight. I'm wondering if he wants to go outside, inside. Okay, it was outside again, and he got that hip. It looks like he's kind of beating him on timing and positioning, which is fine. That is also misdirection. I think that we kind of took this to a game of pure speed here because it looks like they're standing very, very close to each other and not using a lot of lateral movement. This is like very linear. So like I think it's almost kind of phoning it in on critique to say use more lateral movement because you should always be using more lateral movement. I think the only place that lateral movement is not S tier tactic is sword and board because they have so much more coverage. But that means it just means that it's A tier and not S tier, right? So we're a little bit linear. We're standing a little bit too close in my opinion, but I think those are just easy adjustments to make. It looks like he pinned down that outside. I think that was a reset. The last one's the one I'm interested in. I think that was Nolan. That was good patience on Braun's part. Braun's all 3 or 5. Okay. I think patience on Braun's part was really solid here. I think the changeup that he made was he just didn't approach him. I think that could be a good call sometimes because you're like, okay, man, like you be fast, like you do the lunching then. And it looks like Nolan couldn't quite match that offense. I think it can be a really good idea to force your opponent to open because I think that opening a fight, since all your opponent really has to do is kind of take one step back, watch where you're going, and then they kind of get their choice of like counter striking, right? So when you open a fight, you have to be mindful of not just what you want to hit the opponent with. You have to also be mindful of their counter strike too. So I think that opening is like, I would say it's like an order of magnitude more difficult than just backing up and counter striking and hitting them. And when both people kind of refuse to close, that's when it kind of gets interesting because you got to beat the other guy into closing. I think that what Nolan's strategy here probably should have been to say, well, like, I think maybe my closing and opening the fight is not quite as good as Braun's. So I'm just going to wait him out and make him try to do that again because it seemed like that was the part that got him his other win. So I think trying to make Braun open was probably the right call for him with the parameters that I'm seeing. There's one more. It's red. I wonder why did they hug if it wasn't the last fight? I don't know. Sometimes you just like fights, I guess. That was confusing for me. I was hugging the last one. Okay, let's see if it's gonna be the same thing. Great hand block. Great hand block. I think that was just Brand forgot. I did that too. At Keep 2015, I forgot that it was double LM, and I beat Jay Lee, put me in losers round 1. I came back and beat him, but I had never been in a double LM before, so I hugged him and started to walk off, and they're like, buddy, like, you're in losers, you gotta beat him again. And I'm like, fuck, like, I have to fight one of the best people in the game, and now I also feel like I'm the asshole for messing that up. So I can empathize with that. I forget that kind of stuff too. All right, I think that this was mostly just good hand blocks. Took it there for him. All the bronze shots are outside for the series. Yeah, I didn't want to kind of drill that too hard, but I think that we needed to see some inside shots on hand matching. I think they were all. I don't think they were all outside. I think that they were all in this direction for him. So it was like it was all inside in single sword and all outside in single sword in hand matched. So I think that was the main thing. that I saw there. I think that that's great news for Braun, though, if you think about it, right? Because he's like already winning tournaments, and he's using 50% of the shot selection that you would get, like 50% of the target area in single sword. If he just adds the rest of the target area, people are going to be in deep shit for that, right? So I think that that would be a great adjustment for him to make.